GeoByte.
Welcome to GeoByte. Today we're going to discuss Class 11 Biology, Chapter 1, The Living World. The living world. How do you define a living organism? So there are a few pointers which would define a living organism. The first one is growth. Any organism which grows is a living organism. Now when we say growth, it is growth by mass as well as growth by number. So when you say growth by mass, it is the cell division which is happening. The cells inside the organism divide to increase the mass of the organism. When you see in plants, this cell division is indefinite. That is, cell mass growth happens throughout the life of a plant. Whereas in animals, you see that up till a certain number of age, the cell division takes place and thereafter it stops. However, you can see in certain cases for repair of any lost cells or when there is damage or wound, the cell division happens in that particular case in case of animals. Now when I say growth in order to increase the number, that ultimately leads to the second pointer, that is reproduction. Living organisms usually take part in reproduction. This reproduction can be asexual or sexual. We see asexual reproduction in organisms like fungi, and then you have sexual reproduction. So this is the chapter in it altogether which deals in detail. And the next pointer is metabolism. Metabolism is the sum of all the chemical reactions which take place inside the organism, be it digestion, respiration, all these deal with the small biomolecules, that is metabolism. So when I say a living organism, it encompasses all of it, growth, reproduction and metabolism in it. Now you can see living organisms all around you. There is a diverse nature of living organisms, plants, animals, insects, all these are the living organisms. Now as you increase the space where you are observing the living organisms, the number of organisms also increase. Like for example, if you go to a dense forest, you can see huge number of plants, animals and insects. Now what I'm calling this is biodiversity. This huge number of species or the plants, animals, what you see, this is the biodiversity in our nature. So far, there are 1.7 to 1.8 million species being identified and described, and they are describing and identifying even more. So this number keeps on adding forever. Living organisms are called by different local names. If you take in a country, each region has a different name for a specific organism. This leads to a huge confusion when you want to study that particular organism. So this is where a need arises for us to have a standardized nomenclature for each organism. So scientists have arrived at a process called nomenclature, where you identify the organism and you give a particular name. So they see to that no particular organism has more than a single name. So we have different procedures established to give this nomenclature. Now if you see, for example, for plants, there is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So this is an organization which gives criterion based on which the scientific names of plants are given. When you take animals, we have International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. This is the organization which gives criterion based on which scientific names of animals are given. Now, overall nomenclature, we see a type of nomenclature called binomial nomenclature. This was given by Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus is a famous scientist who has given This nomenclature type called binomial nomenclature, this is the nomenclature which is accepted worldwide. Now what is this binomial nomenclature? It is a nomenclature which includes two parts, that is a generic name and there is a specific name. So we understood why do we need a scientific name. Like you can call, for example, take a mango. A mango can be called with different local names in different regions in the same country. But when you want to study mango, you need to have a scientific name for it which goes through this process of nomenclature. Now Carolus Linnaeus is given binomial nomenclature. Let us see what is the binomial nomenclature of mango. Mangifera indica is the binomial scientific nomenclature of mango. Mangifera is a generic name, indica is a specific name. So when you write these two together. Mangifera indica indicates a species of mango. Now there are certain rules to write binomial nomenclature, which is first, generic name is always written before specific name. The second pointer is always the specific name is written in a small letter. It starts with a small letter. Generic name starts with a capital letter. And the third rule is that usually the scientist name is also given at the end. That is, after the specific name, the scientist name is given in an abbreviated form. So the scientist name here is Linnaeus. So he is the one who has identified this particular fruit. So his name will be given after the specific name in an abbreviated form, LINN. So this is how a binomial nomenclature is written. So how do we study such a huge number of living organisms in our world? It's ultimately very difficult to study each and every organism out of 1.7 to 1.8 million species. So that is where the importance of classification comes into picture. When you classify organisms into certain categories, it is much easier to study the organisms of a particular category. Now the classification which scientists have done is a taxonomical classification, where they have divided the each category here is known as a taxa. A taxon is a singular. So this taxon is a single category. So we place it in a hierarchy. So this is the hierarchy of the taxon. So species is the lowest taxon and it goes on increasing from here. Now we will discuss what each of it means and how do we classify an organism. Now species is lowest category, as I said. This is a group of organisms which share fundamental similarities. Like for example, you take a tiger, okay? The tiger species name is Tigris. Tigris is of one species, so tigers mate within themselves to increase their population. And the next comes lion. Lion species name is Leo. So lions mate together, they belong to a single species. Then we can take the example of leopard. The species name of leopard is Pardus. So all these belong to a single species. Now when it comes to the next level, that is the genus, that is where it includes a closely related species. That is Tigris, Leo, Pardus, they all are different species, but they do have similar characteristics. That is where they all are grouped under a genus called Panthera. So when you have to give a scientific name of tiger, it is Panthera tigris. When you have to give a scientific name of lion, it is Panthera leo. So that is nothing but genus. So genus has closely related species. Now when you come to family, family is something which includes closely related genus. An example would be, in case of genus, I'll give you another genus, that is Felis. Felis is nothing but genus of cats. So usually we see few similarities between cats and leopards and tigers. So these though belong to different genus, having similar characters are grouped under a family called as Felidae. So Felidae is a family which consists of both tigers and cats, that is Panthera and Felis, two similarly related genus into a family. So this is a family, a group of closely related genus. The next order is the higher taxon or the category from the family. So this is where you will have a Felidae plus, okay, so Canidae also can be. So Canidae is one family which is dog's family. So Felidae is a cat's family. So the similarities present between dogs and cats led to the grouping of Felidae and Canidae in the order Carnivora. So the name itself indicates they are carnivorous. So order Carnivora. And then the class being Mammalia. So Mammalia class has a huge number of orders in it. One of them could be primates. Primates is the one which includes monkeys, gorillas and all. So those are a specific order. So Carnivora along with primates is placed under Mammalia. So the phylum would be the most broader taxon where you see Chordata, non-Chordata. So this Chordata, non-Chordata classification is basically due to the presence of the notochordon. That's which present in the back of living organisms. So the presence of notochordon makes you to classify it as a Chordata, absence non-Chordata. And the last one, which will be giving us a huge classification, that is Animalia. So Animalia includes a huge number of phylums, which further includes huge number of further categories. So that's a very broad classification of giving Animalia. Similarly for plants you have Plantae. So this is more or less the taxonomical hierarchy, how it goes on: species, genus, family, order, class. So it has to go in this order itself. Another good example would be humans. We as humans, how are we classified? I'll tell you. So the kingdom we belong is Animalia. Phylum we belong is Chordata because of presence of the notochord. And then we belong to Mammalia since we are mammals. And the order we belong to is primates. And the family we belong to is Hominidae. So all human beings belong to this family Hominidae. The genus will be Homo and the species will be Sapiens. So scientific name of a human being is Homo sapiens. Now when it comes to students, they usually tend to forget this order. So we will have a short form for this. You can remember it in this way. So this is a sentence which is very easy to remember, and when you see the first letter of each of the word of this sentence, it comes back to this taxonomical hierarchy, that is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. So this is how you remember the taxonomical hierarchy, because this is confusing and often we tend to forget this. So this is all about the classification. So we have something called as taxonomical aids which help us in identifying or classifying or studying the organisms. Now what are these taxonomical aids? The most famous one is the herbarium, which everyone might have heard of. Herbarium is a book kind of a thing where you have long sheets on which you collect the plants, you dry them and you preserve them in this particular book, where you also give the details or the description of that particular plant. So this is where you use it mostly for, you use it for plants. So this will serve like a repository of plants. Whenever you want to study about them, you go back to herbarium, and they are arranged in a taxonomical hierarchy. So you can go back and see and study about that particular plant. Botanical gardens, we have many famous botanical gardens in our country where you see live plants. So these live plants are grown, they are labeled with the local name as well as the scientific name, and the life processes are being studied in such kind of gardens. The next one is museum. Museums are usually kept in schools or by certain organizations where you see both plants and animals which are preserved in jar kind of things using solutions, or many times even the dry specimens are being stored. So the plants and animals are kept for exhibition where you see different specimens. Also you see larger mammals which are stuffed and kept in jars, or if it is insects, they are just picked up and they are shown in an insect box. So that's what happens in a museum. Zoological park, as we all know, animals are studied there. They are grown in protected environments and they become very much useful when you want to study the food habits and the behavior of the animals. So that's where zoo parks are important. KEYS is a taxonomical aid which helps you in classification and identification. So KEYS is nothing but a set of two sentences. Like there are two sentences which are together called as couplet. In this, each sentence is called as a lead. So what happens is, there is a sentence and the answer for it can be either yes or no. There is another sentence, the answer for it can be either yes or no. So when you say, for example, the beak is pink in color. So when the answer is yes, you're ultimately led to a name of the organism. So that's where it helps in classification. So here you are making a choice of more or less two opposite options. So that's where KEYS help in classification and identification. So this is all about taxonomical aids. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe to GeoByte.
GeoByte.